She stopped, and Caitlin heard the whir of a copier in the outer office. "There are some benefits for Caitlin too," Miss McClasson said. "I think you should explain the terms." "Oh, yes." Joyce let go of Caitlin's hands and picked up a manila folder from the desk. "You'll go to a very good school in San Carlos to finish up your senior year. Meanwhile, you'll be living at the Institute with the 4 other students we've chosen. We'll do testing every afternoon, but it won't take long. Just an hour or 2 a day. And at the end of a year, you'll receive a scholarship to the college of your choice." Joyce opened the folder and handed it to Caitlin. "A very generous scholarship." "A very generous scholarship," Miss McClasson said. Caitlin found herself looking at a number on a piece of paper. "That's for all of us to split?" "That is for you," Joyce said. "Alone." Caitlin felt dizzy. "You'll be helping the cause of science," Joyce said, "and you could make a new life for yourself, a new start. No one at your new school needs to know why you're there. You can just be an ordinary high school kid. Next fall you can go to Stanford or San Francisco State University. San Carlos is just half an hour south of San Francisco, and after that, you're free. You can go anywhere." Caitlin felt really dizzy. "You'll love the Bay Area. Sunshine, nice beaches. Do you realize it was 70 degrees there yesterday when I left? 70 degrees in winter. Redwoods, palm trees." "I can't," Caitlin said weakly. Joyce and the principal both looked at her, startled. "I can't," Kate said again, more loudly, pulling her walls close around her. She needed the walls, or she might succumb to the shimmering picture Joyce was painting in her mind. "Don't you want to get away?" Joyce said gently. Didn't she? Only so much that she sometimes felt like a bird beating its wings against glass, except that she'd never been quite sure what she'd do once she got away. She just thought, there must be some place I belong, a place where I'd just fit in without trying. She'd never thought of California being the place. California was almost too rich, too heady and exciting. It was like a dream. And the money. But her father. "You don't understand. It's my dad. I've never been away from him, not since my mum died. And he needs me. He really needs me." Miss McClasson was looking sympathetic. Miss McClasson knew her dad, of course. He'd been brilliant, a philosophy professor. He'd written books. But after Caitlin's mother had died, he got vague. Now he sang a lot to himself and did odd jobs around town. He didn't make much doing them. When bills came in, he shuffled his feet and ruffled his hair, looking anxious and ashamed. He was almost like a kid, but he adored Kate and she adored him. She would never let anything hurt him. And to leave him so soon, before she was even old enough to go to college, and to go all the way to California, and for a year! "It's impossible," she said. Miss McClasson was looking down at her plump hands. "But Caitlin, don't you think he'd want you to go? To do what's best for you?" Caitlin shook her head. She didn't want to listen to arguments. Her mind was made up. "Wouldn't you like to learn to control your talents?" Joyce said. Caitlin looked at her. The possibility of control had never occurred to her. The pictures came when she wasn't expecting them, took over her hand without her realizing it. She never knew what had happened until it was over. "I think you can learn," Joyce said. "I think you and I could learn, together." Caitlin opened her mouth, but before she could answer, there was a terrible sound from outside the office. It was a crashing and a grinding and shattering all together, and it was a huge noise, so huge that Caitlin knew at once that it could come from nothing ordinary. It sounded very close. Joyce and Miss McClasson had both jumped up, and it was the plump little principal who made it to the door first. She rushed out through the office to the street, with Kate and Joyce following her. People were running up on either side of Harding Street, crunching through the snow. Cold air bit Caitlin's cheeks. The slanting afternoon sunlight threw up sharp contrasts between light and shadow, making the scene in front of Caitlin look frighteningly focused and distinct. A yellow neon was facing the wrong way on Harding Street, its back wheels on the sidewalk, its left side a wreck. It looked as if it had been broadsided and spun. Caitlin recognised it. It belonged to Jerry Crutchfield, one of the few students who had a car. In the middle of the street, a dark blue station wagon was facing Caitlin directly. Its entire front end was accordioned. The metal was twisted and deformed, the headlights shattered. Polly Vertanen, our junior, was tugging at Miss McClassen's sleeve. "I saw everything, Miss McClassen. Jerry just pulled out of the parking lot, but the station wagon was going too fast. They just hit him. I saw everything. They were going too fast." That's Marian Gunter's station wagon," Miss McClassen said sharply. "That's her little girl in there. Don't move her yet. Don't move her yet." The principal's voice went on, but Kate didn't hear any more. She was staring at the windshield of the station wagon. She hadn't seen before, but she could see now. People around her were yelling, running. Caitlin hardly noticed them. Her entire world was filled with the car windshield. The little girl had been thrown up against it, or maybe it had crunched back up against her. She was actually lying with her forehead touching the glass, as if she were looking out with open eyes. With wide eyes. Wide, round, heavy-lashed eyes. Bambi eyes. She had a small snub nose and a round chin. Wavy blonde hair stuck to the glass. The glass was shattered like a spiderweb superimposed on the child's face. "Oh, no. Please, no," Caitlin whispered. She found herself clutching, without knowing what she was clutching at. Somebody steadied her. Sirens were wailing closer. A crowd was gathering around the station wagon, blocking Caitlin's view of the child. She knew Kurt Gunter. The little girl must be Lindy, his baby sister. Why hadn't Kate realised? Why hadn't her picture shown her? Why couldn't it have shown her cars crashing, with a date and a place, instead of that pathetic kid's face? How could it all be so useless, so completely freaking useless? "Do you need to sit down?" the person holding her asked, and it was Joyce Piper, and she was shivering. Kate was shivering too. Her breath was coming very fast. She clutched harder at Joyce. "Did you mean that, about me learning to control what I do?" Kate couldn't call it a talent. Joyce looked from her to the accident scene with something like dawning realization. "I think so. I hope so." "You have to promise." Joyce met her gaze full on, the way people in Thoroughfare never did. "I promise to try, Kate. Then I'll go. My dad will understand." Joyce's aquamarine eyes were brilliant. "I'm so glad." She shivered violently. 70 degrees there, Kate," she added softly, almost absently. "Pack light." That night, Caitlin had a strangely realistic dream. She was on a rocky peninsula, a spit of land surrounded by cold grey ocean. The clouds overhead were almost black, and the wind blew spray into her face. She could actually feel the wet of it, the chill. From just behind her, someone called her name, but when she turned, the dream ended.